Every decision to quit, walk away, or surrender carries weight. There's the fear of failure, the stigma of quitting, and the whispers of what if. But sometimes, the most courageous choice is to step back, to move on, to stop fighting a losing battle, and embrace what lies beyond. The line between giving up and letting go is razor thin, and how we navigate it shapes our futures. Let's explore the stories of three ancient leaders who gave up everything, each for very different reasons. Their lives illuminate what it costs to give up, and how those costs can either break us or lead to transformation. Imagine ruling over a crumbling empire, a realm teetering on the edge of chaos, with every decision you make either mending fractures or deepening them. Emperor Diocletian, who ruled Rome from 284 to 305 CE, stepped into such a scenario. He restructured Rome's administration, stabilized its economy, and brought relative peace after decades of crisis. His leadership was a masterclass in endurance and vision, but even the mightiest rulers aren't immune to burnout. After over 2 decades of bearing the weight of an empire, Diocletian shocked the Roman world by voluntarily abdicating his throne, the first emperor to ever do so. In a public ceremony in Nicomedia, he removed his imperial robes, choosing a simpler life. When urged to return to power, Diocletian famously replied, "If you could show the cabbage I planted with my own hands to your emperor, he definitely wouldn't dare suggest I trade this peace and happiness for the storms of a never-satisfied greed." Diocletian's story teaches us that sometimes the cost of continuing isn't worth it. Power, wealth, and ambition can become prisons, and letting go can be an act of liberation. For Diocletian, stepping away wasn't defeat. It was reclaiming his humanity. Think about your career, your relationships, or a project you've poured yourself into. Sometimes the pressure mounts so high that walking away feels like betrayal of others, of yourself. But Diocletian's lesson is clear. Peace of mind is priceless. If what you're holding onto drains your spirit more than it fuels it, it might be time to let go. For instance, imagine a young entrepreneur who has spent years building a startup. Despite their relentless effort, the business struggles to break even. Walking away doesn't mean failure if it opens the door to a path more aligned with their values. Now picture a different kind of leader, one who rises not out of ambition, but out of necessity. Queen Boudicca of the Iceni tribe had no aspirations for war, but after the Romans seized her land, flogged her publicly, and assaulted her daughters, she had no choice but to fight back. Boudicca's rebellion was ferocious. She led an army that burned Roman settlements to the ground, including Londinium, modern-day London. For a brief moment, her uprising was a beacon of resistance, shaking the foundation of Roman rule in Britain. But her triumph was short-lived. At the Battle of Watling Street, the Romans regrouped and crushed her forces. Facing capture, Boudicca chose to poison herself rather than live under Roman subjugation. Her rebellion failed, but her story endured. She became a symbol of defiance, a reminder that even in defeat, there is dignity in fighting for what you believe in. How many battles do we fight out of ego rather than principle? Boudicca's story challenges us to reflect on why we fight. Are we pursuing justice, or are we chasing validation? Take the modern example of someone in a toxic relationship. They might stay out of pride, determined to make it work, despite the damage it's doing to their mental health. But walking away isn't weakness. It's choosing to preserve your own dignity, just as Boudicca did in her final act. Sometimes, giving up isn't a choice. It's forced upon you. Romulus Augustulus, the last Western Roman emperor, ruled for less than a year. A teenager at the helm of a collapsing empire, he was powerless to stop its disintegration. In 476 CE, when the Germanic leader Odoacer deposed him, the empire that had ruled for over a millennium came to an end. Unlike Diocletian or Boudicca, Romulus didn't fight. He quietly accepted his fate, living out his days in obscurity in a villa in southern Italy. His story is often seen as one of failure, but perhaps there's a deeper lesson here. Sometimes, surrender is inevitable. Romulus's life reminds us that not every battle is winnable. In a world obsessed with perseverance, this can be a bitter pill to swallow. But Stoic wisdom, echoed in Romulus's quiet retreat, teaches us to focus on what we can control. Imagine a professional athlete who suffers a career-ending injury. They could spend years clinging to what might have been, or they could pivot, finding fulfillment in coaching or advocacy. Like Romulus, accepting what's beyond our control can lead to unexpected peace. The stories of Diocletian, Boudicca, and Romulus highlight different facets of surrender, but the question remains, how do you know when to let go? 1. Set clear goals. The only way to appreciate pursuing a dream is to set realistic but ambitious goals. If you're giving 80 hours a week for 6 months and hitting less than 80% of your target, it's okay to step back with your head held high. 2. Avoid the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've invested time, energy, or resources into something doesn't mean you're obligated to continue. Know when to cut your losses. 3. Embrace the lessons. Walking away doesn't erase the effort you've put in. It enriches you with experience, making your next pursuit wiser and more intentional. Even in our daily lives, the lessons from these leaders resonate. Take dating, for example. If you've worked on yourself, your confidence, your health, your purpose, and still face rejection, it won't sting as much. Why? Because you entered the interaction with integrity, not manipulation. Contrast this with the person who leaves every rejection feeling betrayed or devastated. Their despair isn't rooted in genuine effort, but in failed attempts to control or manipulate. True resilience comes from accepting outcomes, not forcing them. Each of these leaders teaches us that giving up isn't inherently good or bad. It's how and why we do it that matters. Diocletian reminds us to prioritize inner peace over external validation. Boudicca shows us the power of fighting for something greater than ourselves. Romulus teaches us the dignity of accepting the inevitable. The common thread? Each one found strength in their surrender, and so can you. The next time you face a choice, whether to persist or to let go, ask yourself these questions. Am I fighting for the right reasons? Is this battle aligned with my values? Will continuing bring me closer to peace or further from it? Life's greatest lessons often come in moments of surrender. Embrace them, and you'll find that letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new.